Hey yo, it's your boy Codehova from Fly Combinator. We're pimping Swift, and we're going to be unwrapping optionals with the other option, which is the guard let. So the if let, it's really good to use, especially when we're learning Swift. It works perfectly here in the Xcode playgrounds. But the guard let, it's something that I use more often than the if let in iOS development when I'm building apps for the iPhone. So just to work with the guard let easily in the Xcode playground, I created an enum, which you're going to learn about how to build later. I just created an error class, all right? And this, well, it's a enum, not a class, but it's a error object where I just named it fucking error, and the only case that you could have when you have a fucking error is fuck shit, all right? So we have here this 40 string, just like in the previous videos, and we have this cast as a 40 int optional. So how can I use a guard let statement to use this optional, to use this int value if it is one? All right, so let's say we're going to type guard, that's the keyword, and it's very similar where you write let. So guard let 40 int equals 40 int optional, all right? But we're not going to have the curly brace just right here. We're going to have the keyword else. So let me just type this out and then I'll explain. So I'm going to have to print this int optional was nil. And then in a guard statement, in the else block, you have to either have a return or a throw. And I can't return because this isn't a function. We'll get to that later. So we're just gonna throw fucking error dot fuck shit. Okay. And then now I'm able to use the 40 int plus 60. And let me just run this code. And I'll print it as well. Print 40 int 60. Run this. So we have 100. All right, so what is this guard statement doing? So it's saying guard, I'm gonna make sure that this is real, else I'm gonna run this code. And I think it's a bad example for me to show this guard statement. We're just learning what guard lets are, so we could do it right here. But basically, when you're doing iOS app development and you have a guard statement in a function, if that guard fails, that function it's gonna jump out of that function. It's gonna stop running any line of code after that failure. It's just going to run this else, and whatever is in here, it's just gonna run that, and then it's gonna jump right out. So let me show you what's up. So we have this int optional value, 40 int optional, okay? So if this optional is actually an int, we're able to use this keyword, this value in the rest of our code. We're able to use it, and we don't have to think of it as an optional no more. It has been cast into an actual value, okay? So that's what we're dealing with here. So it's saying, guard, make sure that this optional is actually the value. And if so, I'll be able to use that value down below. But if this is a nil, and this, because it's a nil, this won't exist, just run this block of code. All right. So let's see what happens when we change this into a string that cannot be converted into an int. It's going to say this int optional was nil because we have this just a string. We try to convert that string into an int. It fails, as we see here. It's a nil. And when we're saying guard let 40 int equals 40 int optional, this is nil, so it's going to crap out and it's going to go into this block of code. And because we're going into this block of code, this is going to print out. This int optional was nil. So let me just comment this out, right? And let's do the same here. All right. So we're going to guard let pimp C equals RIP, because as you see, RIP is a string optional. Else, okay. So what do we want to do when this RIP is a nil and we fail this guard let statement? We're gonna say print pimp C is not here. All right. And because this is a guard statement, we're either gonna have to return or throw to exit the scope. So at this time, all we gotta do is we're gonna throw fucking error dot fuck shit. All right. And so, all right, let's let that go away. One of the greatest was all right, pimp C. So let's run this. One of the greatest was Chad Butler. All right. So what's going on? Again, we have the keyword of guard, and we're saying let this constant exist if RIP, if this string optional, is actually a string. So because this actually is a string, we're able to use this new constant that we created down below. You know, when we're using the if let, that value, so if let RIP pimp C2 equal RIP, all right, print pimp C2. And let me do string interpolation. This is in the if let block only. Pimp C. Okay. So if I run this, we'll see this is in the if let block only, Chad Butler. So when we have an if let, this constant that we create, if we're not dealing with a nil value, this constant is only usable within this block. But when we deal with something like a guard let, you see guard let pimp C equals RIP, we're able to use pimp C anywhere. So I could even type pimp C down here. And if we run this, you know, pimp C is always there. Pimp C is there to use underneath this. Okay? But when we're dealing with the if let, this constant value is only usable within the curly braces. So that's the difference of the guard and the if let. Okay? So let's say that we're calling out a different value, Triller, which doesn't exist in this dictionary. We're going to see that pimp C is not here. All right? And because pimp C is not here, it's going to throw this. If this was an application, we would do a return. So any code underneath does not run, as we see here. It just says pimp C is not here, and it's done. All right. That's how it is, man. So I think I explained enough of the guard let. If you have any questions, put it in the comments below. But it's your boy Codehova for Fly Combinator. We're pimping Swift. Let's get that bag, yo.